Also Hanukkah, so I want to start a little Vayetzei, and then we'll do some Hanukkah. Just in the region, perfect. Okay.
We were talking why the brothers went back to Shechem. They just came not too long ago, killing all the male over there.
Yeah, Shechem is a Makam Peronius, right?
Yeah.
Shechem is not really a...
Why would they want to go back there, for the pasture,
I mean, the bigger question, why would Yaakov send Yosef there if he knew that place was not such a...
That's the place where everything bad
Yeah,
happens.
Makam Peronius, the place where all those not great things happen there. Dina and et cetera, et cetera. I would think that it says Yaakov sent Yosef lirish shleimachid, right, to make peace. In other words, I assume that Yosef is going to play the role, and that's the role that Yaakov wants to play, not just with the brothers, but eventually Mashiach ben Yosef. That the whole Mashiach ben Yosef is the one that kind of preps everything up and gets everybody, unifies the people together. So maybe Yaakov wanted to see how. He could fear in creating a place that normally has such contention, how he'd be able to make shalom in that place. I mean, the Orach Chaim does talk about, not why Dafka Shem, but he does talk about the fact that, Yaakov sending Yosef in a very risky business. He knows the brother's not exactly on best of terms. And so the Orach Chaim says he gave him a specific mitzvah, and that he's a shliach mitzvah, and a shliach mitzvah we know is protected. So he assumed, and the Orach Chaim has a whole Mahal, whole way of thinking based on that concept that Yaakov thought Yosef would be protected. The truth of the matter is, the question is, well, and it didn't seem to work out the way he envisioned, right? So was he protected or not? So the Orach Chaim says either he was protected because at the end of the day, it was good that he was sold into slavery. At the end of the day, it was the best for Klal Yisrael. Or he says that the shlichus was over because they had gone from Shechem to Daisana. And his mission was to Shechem, so he went to Daisana, he was ready on his own, so to speak. That's how Orach Chaim goes through that, but we're not going to spend time on that. I do want to spend a little time on so Yaakov and Yosef. So, is it fair to say, is it okay for a parent to have a favorite child?
Definitely not.
It caused a lot of problems.
What do you think? Do you think parents have favorite children?
But yes.
Huh? Yes, no?
Yes. They frequently do, but if they're smart, they don't let anybody know about it.
Okay, that's the big difference. 100% right. It's quite possible there's a child that's your favorite for a bunch of reasons. It says, Yitzchak loved Esav because there was a certain kinship they had. The Midas Hadin, the Zohar says. So it's not wrong for a person to have a parent to feel a special relationship with a particular child, but he said it's showing it. It's the problem. You can't display that, and that's where Yaakov went a little bit off because he had figured he gives Yosef this Ksonas Pasuk, right? The special cloak. Now, the brothers are not jealous of a coat. We really have to. I think I mentioned this point before. Unlike any other study, any study, science, math, you start with a question, a problem, and you work your way to a solution. Right? That's where it goes. In the Torah, it's the opposite. We have the solution, we have the answer right away, then we work our way backwards. Meaning, I know the answer is that Yosef and the brothers did not have a spat about a coat. That's clear. This is not a sibling rivalry because somebody wanted the fancy sneakers that the other guy had. That's not what it is. I know for sure that's not what it was because we work with certain presumptions. The presumption is that if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is choosing these people to be the 12 tribe and foundation of Klal Yisrael, he's surely not going to choose a bickering tribe that is so petty about a coat. So we know what it's not. Now I got to figure out what it is, all right? But we know what it's not. And when Yaakov gave Yosef this coat, it wasn't the coat that he was giving him, but the role that the coat played. It wasn't, and the brothers were jealous not of the coat, they were jealous of the role that the coat played. And Yaakov misunderstood or miscalculated. He thought the brothers would be bigger than that, and they would not be jealous of the role that he played, and they don't understand. Listen, Yosef has his role, you have your role, and you have to be able to accept that. And he thought they were bigger than than that, and they would not, feel resentment of the role he's playing. So that's where it went off. The brothers themselves, they were jealous, but again, jealousy, like any character, it could be good, could be bad. Jealousy. If I'm wishful, if I really want what you have, meaning you have all this wisdom, and I want that wisdom, and I use that to drive myself, that's acceptable. The only time jealousy is not acceptable is when I want it for you and therefore for me and not for you. When the jealousy is why do you have it, I want it and not you, that's obviously unhealthy and dangerous jealousy. But a jealousy that motivates, that's a healthy jealousy. Of course, you have to be careful not to cross the line, and that's the danger. The brothers thought that the jealousy that they might have been exhibiting was a healthy jealousy. But they actually crossed the line, and unbeknownst to them perhaps, and what crept in was kind of a personal jealousy too, and that's when their thinking went off. If it would just been a jealousy of, wow, look at that great role you're playing, and we wish we could play that role, that's okay. The problem is when you want to deny the person that role, as the brothers ultimately wanted to do. Jealousy is that. Very often jealousy run amok is a jealousy where you not only do you want it for yourself, you don't want somebody else to have it. I've told you this once. Classic example of jealousy is, let's say you're walking down the street and see a guy drive by in a really nice car. You go, that's a really nice car. Next step, I don't know if that guy really deserves that nice car. Third step, I deserve that nice car, right? Fourth step, he's really driving my car, right? Fifth step, hey, thief, that's my car, right? You go from this, I wish I had that car, to the stages of he has something that really you think somehow belongs to you. And in a certain sense, it could be the brothers crossed that line, but then they thought that Yosef has something that belonged to them. Yaakov was hoping that they would be able to appreciate, and he assumed they would appreciate the role he was playing. And if they felt any jealousy, it would be of a motivational factor, but somehow crept in some of the human factor, and that's where they went off. I want to explain to you how that devolved in such a hideous thing where they sold him, and I want to explain that one thing, they'll take questions, so we'll just finish this thought. So again, Yaakov gives Yosef a coat, it's not the coat, it's the role. The brothers are jealous of that role in a sense, but Yosef also doesn't play it right. The pasuk tells us, and as wise as he was, there was an immaturity. And he thought that somehow he could kind of talk about these dreams and they'd be willing to accept it. And he didn't really understand human nature enough to realize, don't rub it in. After the first dream, if they're not really accepting of it, and he kept saying, no, it's okay, they'll accept it. And he was wise in years, but not in certain nuances that come with experience. And that's where he went off. Now, the brothers are still hard to understand how they went off, and it went off from a jealousy that kind of went sideways to selling the brother. So I want to share with you one point. I'm going to kind of just deal with this one package, and I'll take questions. There's a really fascinating concept, it's a big concept. Chazal tell us, the Bnei Yisrael only sinned by the sin of the Egel, lahoros tshuva l'rabim, to show the people that publicly you can do a tshuva, a whole people can do tshuva. And David was chotei, David sinned to show tshuva for the yachid. Now that sounds kind of flimsy at best, because what does it mean? So David really was just simply a puppet. He didn't sin by himself, and Hashem made him sin so that to teach truth for everybody else, and Bnei Yisrael didn't really sin. We're not getting that, right? What it means is like this. It's a really very deep concept. It goes like this. We all know that free will does not involve results. We are not in control of results. Free will does not mean I guarantee to accomplish what I want to accomplish. Free will only guarantees I have a right to make certain choices. That's it. Results not up to us. Whatever Hashem wants, that's the result. Let's say I want to get into the car because I want to visit somebody who's sick in the hospital. That's my desire. Hashem says, you know what? You don't deserve that mitzvah. I'll get a flat tire. I'm not in control of the result. Yud and Tamar, which is also this week's parsha. It's also a hard parsha to understand how Yudah could do something, right? Even though, again, halachically speaking, it wasn't anything halachically wrong. But the Chazal tell us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent him a malach of taiva that kind of fanned the flames of taiva, and he kind of wasn't able to keep that in check. What does that mean? And why would Hashem do that then and set him up that way? And there's in all these cases a very similar idea. If the brothers demonstrated some jealousy that really was inappropriate, and that was their choice to do something because they were jealous, if Yehuda felt a little bit of a taiva that was really off, if Bnei Yisrael were having an inkling of a chet egel, if David was having an inkling of doing something with Bathsheba, HaKadosh Baruch Hu now says, I'm going to take that inkling and I'm going to explode it. No, it's out of your hands now. You're only held accountable because you had that little shemetz, that little inkling that I'm now going to take advantage of. You're not responsible for the end result. You're responsible for the fact that you had that inclination, and I'm now going to use that inclination for the desired result that I want. And so, HaKadosh Baruch Hu fans the flames of Yehuda's taiva because Yehuda triggered it by starting it. The brothers start with a little jealousy. Hashem fanned the flames of the jealousy and made it almost out of control, where the brothers sell it to slavery, right? And same thing with David, a little taiva. Hashem. So the idea is that it's a kind of a serious and a delicate idea that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take a certain tenuah that we have, a certain movement that we have, and that's our free will. And at that point, it's no longer our free will. Hashem says, okay, now that you did this wrong by showing that inclination, I'm going to take advantage of that for the desired result that I want. That's a kind of a big picture idea to understand all these particular stories. So I want to wrap up the jealousy thing. It was not the coat, it was the role. The brothers, Yaakov assumed that the brothers could handle the designation of a particular role. Yosef fanned the flames by not quite getting it a little bit. The brothers didn't realize they were creeping over the line of jealousy, from a healthy jealousy to an unhealthy jealousy. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes advantage of all those players going a little past where they should go and pushing it to the point where he wants to go. All right, that's the idea. Everyone asks the question, Bechira versus, predestination, meaning we have free will. Yet HaKadosh Baruch Hu has final, Hashem knows everything. How's that consistent with free will? The closest example I have, I think, that maybe helps explain that is, a number of years ago, I ran I still run, in the summertime, run an outreach program. And a number of years ago, about 10 years ago even, we had a young boy, he was 22 years old, just graduated college from New Jersey, a Russian fellow, who was a junior chess champion. And so just to kind of amuse himself, he said, I'll play 3 guys chess at once, blindfolded. Basically, they blindfolded him, and they would just tell him to move, and he'd memorize the boards, right? And he beat everybody like nothing. And he said, this is child's play for a chess master. The real big ones, I'm just junior, I'm a lightweight, I'm 22 years old. The real ones that can play 20 games, right? Now, a guy like that, if I'd be playing him chess, I'm a novice. Do I have free will to move my pieces wherever I want?
Yes.
Yeah. Will he be able to manipulate that board to get checkmate? Absolutely yes. In other words, I got my free will, I can make my little moves, but the chess master could take every one of those moves and get the desired result that he wants. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu also, we make our little moves, HaKadosh Baruch Hu uses that move for the desired result that he wants. That's really what's going on in all these cases. Yeah, I know you had a question, and you had a question, yeah.
Well, my question was, what was the relationship between the brothers? They were coming from one father, but 4 mothers. They must have had,
okay, so
opinions, different
Rashi does tell us that on some level, the brothers that came from Rachel and Leah felt themselves a little bit superior to the brother that came from Bill and Zilpah, and that Yosef reported that back to Yaakov. So there must have been a little tension there. They did, on the other hand, all recognize Yehuda was destined to be Melech, and that's why when Yosef had all these dreams, they fully kind of unified and said, no, you're usurping something that doesn't belong to you, and they saw him as a threat to the unity of the Jewish people. So they kind of did have some sense of unity to them. And they respected Yehuda until he made the choice that he did by selling Yosef, and they didn't respect that, and they kind of stripped him of a certain prestige that he had. But that's the best I can tell you, is that there was some sort of tension between them. On the other hand, there was some sort of unified front at the same time.
But then Yosef was always
Rachel,
favoring
Benjamin.
of Benjamin, but the children not from his own mother or
He was defending them, certainly. He was defending them.
Right. He was protecting the other children.
Yes.
And how come those other children didn't protect him?
That's a good question.
Did they have a power against the other brothers?
It's a good question.
Well, at least they could have voiced something.
It's interesting, you're asking a good question. The Gemara tells us that when Ruvain went to save Yosef,
Yes.
the reason why he did so, because he had Hakaras Hatov, he had special gratitude. Why? Because Yosef, in the dreams, had talked about 11 sons bowing down, meaning including Ruvain, and Ruvain thought that he would be on the outs with Yaakov because he switched the beds earlier on and was doing tshuva. And the fact that Yosef somehow in his dream was included, that Reuben was part of the big picture, he was grateful because that kind of implied that Reuben was back in the fold, which is, by the interesting thing. I want you to know what it means. It doesn't mean that there was a tit for tat over here. Reuven said, okay, you had a good dream for me, I'll save you. That's not what it means. What it means, what it says, they had gratitude. I think it's a much deeper idea. Because Reuven, what is Hakaras Tov? Hakaras Tov means the ability to see the good in somebody else.
Yes.
Because Reuven recognized that Yosef did something good, he was Makir Tov, which means I have now the ability and the responsibility to see the good. So Reuven saw in Yosef redeeming values that he wanted to save him. It's not like I owe you one. Like, okay, you had a dream for me, so I'm going to save you. It's not because I owe you one. It's because Hakaras Tov makes you, it's an exercise where you get to see the good in somebody else. So Reuven saw more good in Yosef than the brothers did. It wasn't that, listen, you save me, I'll save you. It's that because I have gratitude to you, I'm going to look at your good, positive traits. And when he saw those good, positive traits, that was the reason why he decided to save Yosef. But you're absolutely right. You could ask why Bill and Zilpah didn't feel a certain sense of Hakaras Tov that to come to Yosef's defense. And you might be right that they felt powerless in front of the other brothers. They did try to create this unified front. They even got HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They made HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak, promise not to disclose Yosef's whereabouts. So they created this. They did something, created this wall, and they, I guess, had to, fall in step. But it's certainly a fair question to ask. Yes.
I really think that the only reason Reuben tried to save Yosef was because, as we all know, Reuben went to his father's tent with his aunt.
Yes.
Okay, so he
His
knew
mother.
the punishment.
Yep.
He, his head was down, and he wanted to do something good to save his brother and to look good in front of his father. Maybe try to get a point, in front of his father.
All right. I mean, that's you certainly
I
could
think
say,
he felt responsible because he was the Bechor.
Certainly, he said, he said, I'm the Bechor. He said that.
Yeah, except Yaakov was treating Yosef as the Bechor all along.
Right.
The double coats.
Yes. Yes.
You
Yes.
know, the special privileges. Go back to the story with Dinah. When the leader of Shechem came up to talk to Yaakov and say he wanted to marry Dinah,
Right.
the brothers were there. Yaakov didn't say anything. Shimon and Levi were the ones who answered.
Right.
These were sons of Leah. And they felt that Leah, their mother, was the hated wife, that Yaakov wouldn't do anything for...
Well, Dinah was from
No,
Rachel.
I'm sorry. Torah says specifically that when they
from
come
Rachel.
to Yaakov, none of the boys were there. He waited for his son to come to make a decision.
No, he did. Yeah.
No, you...
Yes.
It's okay.
They weren't home.
It's less than Prasha, but you see Yaakov is slowly handing over the reins to the brothers. He says, okay, now it's your turn to kind of make decisions for the Jewish people. And he kind of steps back a little bit. In fact, that's how this Prasha begins. Vayeshev Yaakov. Yaakov says, you know what? I've put in my time. Bikesh Yaakov Leisha Bashalva. Right?
Yeah,
He
he
says,
wants to retire.
right. So what it means is he was really, in some sense, abdicating to disrupt them. Okay, now it's time for Klal Yisrael. I built Klal Yisrael, so to speak. I formed them. Now you have to act like Klal Yisrael. So he kind of abdicated a little bit, and that's why Bikesh Leish B'Shalva. He said, okay, my avod is done already, and Hashem said, no, you're not done yet. Yeah.
Right, but my point is that there's bad blood between the sons of Leah and the sons of Rachel, especially...
Yeah, but that would explain why they're defending Dinah, who was a son of Rachel. I mean,
Dinah was a son
from Leah, I'm
of
saying.
Leah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I'm
Their
sorry
own,
for your
their own
Right,
sister.
so, you know, Shimon and Levi seem to feel that no one would stand up for Dinah except the sons of
Okay,
Leah.
I'm not familiar with that idea.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Not sure,
then,
okay.
but when Yaakov is treating Yosef as the Bechor,
Yeah.
the Torah in Devarim comes back and says, if you have two wives and the hated wife has the firstborn son, you cannot bypass the firstborn son in favor of son of the loved wife. This is saying you can't do what Yaakov did.
Excuse me.
Yeah, that's
Yaakov was not treating Yosef as a Bechor.
Yes, he was.
No, he was not. I tell you why. Because when he was in bed and dying, specifically Yaakov said, Reuben, you are my Bechori. But because you did something like that, you are not considered to be a Bechor. And then he goes to to Shimon and Levi and says, since you did what you did, you killed a lot of people for no good reason.
Who
You
got
had
the double portion? Yosef got the double portion. He treated him as the Bechor.
well, because that wasn't because he was Bechor, because he was his favorite. Don't forget, he worked 14 years to get Rachel, and after so many years of praying for Rachel, and at the end getting mad at Rachel, hey, you think I'm God? God has to give us a kid. And finally he got Yosef, and obviously it was his favorite, but not a Bechor.
Yes, he was. He got the double portion. He got the right of the Bechor.
Well, I mean, he gave Benjamin and I mean, he gave Menashe and Ephraim portions.
That's
and he
the
didn't
double
give
portion for Yosef.
Yeah, he doesn't give it to the other brother. That doesn't mean Yosef was.
He treated him.
And don't forget, now Yosef is the king of Mitzrayim. He saved his brother, he saved his mother, and millions of people. So, you know.
Of the double portion for the Bechor comes up all over the story. It comes up with the way that Yosef treated Benjamin when the brothers were there too. I mean, it's all over the place.
Well, because they were
What
from the same
brother
mother.
did to him, he wanted to make it even.
Let's ask the rabbi.
Right.
Is that a standard of
Yehuda
designating the
actually
Bechor
gets
out?
the
What
Bechor.
is
We're
it?
going to get sidetracked.
I think we have been already. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll tell you. The relationship with Yaakov and Yosef is not just whether he considered him Bechor or not. It was much more than that. Yaakov sees Yosef as an extension of himself. And that's different than being a Bechor in a certain sense. For instance, we know the Gemara say that Yosef looked like Yaakov, and everything that happened to Yaakov happened to Yosef. But it's more than that. Avram is considered the first self-made Jew. Yitzchak is the first born Jew. And Yaakov is the first Jew that once a Jew, always a Jew. That from Avram is not the case. Avram had Yishmael, not Jewish. Yitzchak had a son Esav, not Jewish. From Yaakov, you have the concept that once a person is born Jewish, he can't. There's no out. Once a Jewish, you're always Jewish. So Yaakov guarantees the nitzchios, the eternity of the Jewish people. Yaakov, because from him on, everyone's Jewish. But there is one chink in the armor, and that is if you opt and marry a non-Jewish woman, you've broken the chain, right? What does Yosef do? Yosef, this is Parsha, fights off Mrs. Potiphar, so to speak. He, so to speak, puts into that chain the ability to fight off assimilation. So Yosef completes who Yaakov is. That's what we're saying. Yosef really is an extension of Yaakov, and that's why he gets that extra portion as an extension of Yaakov. In fact, it's also fascinating that Yosef is buried in the end of Vayechi, but at the beginning of Shemos, it also talks about Yosef being buried. Why is he being buried twice? The idea is fascinating that Sefer Bereshis deals with the Avos. That's their territory. Shmos is the children. Yosef is both. He's an Av. He's a quasi-Av. He's kind of an extension of... In fact, he has two sons that become Shvatim, because that's something only an Av can do. So he's a quasi-Av. So he's buried, so to speak. His burial is mentioned in Bereshis, which is the book of the patriarchs. He's also buried, so to speak, in Shmos, which is the book of the children, because he represents that transition. He represents transition. So there is an extension transition, and that explains a lot of this stuff. But I want to go a little further than that. But let's hold it from that for now. Okay. So
Very good.
So Yosef is sold in slavery. We know, I mentioned just briefly what happened with Yehuda and Tamar. Actually, there's an interesting reference I'll point out. So we all know the story of Yehuda and Tamar, and V'hikim Shlosh Chadashim, she's 3 months pregnant, right? And that's when people recognize she's pregnant, and they accused her of being inappropriate, and she was a daughter of a Kohen, therefore she was get a Sreifa. And then Yehuda at the end admits that it was him, right? But it's interesting. The word Yehuda comes from the word Hoda'ah. Hoda'ah means what?
Thank you.
Thank you. He also was Modeh. He admitted that it was in fact he was the guilty party. The same word, right? Modeh, to give thanks. Modeh, to admit. Why do you suppose the word Modeh means both thank you and admit? Every thank you is an admission that you did something for me. People have a hard time doing that. People enjoy their independence and they don't want to feel they were beholden or they needed someone. So every thank you requires us to admit that there was something that you did for me. So because Yehuda was so experienced in Hodah, in giving thanks, which is a form of admission, that's why he was able to admit to this terrible thing, even though it would cause him such shame and disgrace. But that's because he had the ability to just thank you. Every thank you really is a form of admission. I have to admit that I needed to come onto you to accomplish whatever I wanted to accomplish. And that takes like some swallowing of pride, right? But because he was able to be Modeh, he was also able to be Modeh in terms of admission as well. I want to mention one point, I'll take your question in a second. It's fascinating, in this story, I'm just kind of want to just treat the story as a closure of the story. You know, we all know at the end of the story, he owes this woman some money, because he had given originally his seal, right. And he goes to his friend, right? And he says, could you do me a favor, give this to this Zona, to this prostitute. Now, I mean, that's a really kind of shameful thing to do, you know? The first time the Torah ever mentions the word Reya, friend, is over here. And we know the first time the Torah ever mentions something, wherever it mentions it, it kind of gives a little clue to what that concept is. You see from here, what's a friend? A friend is a real friend is someone you could share with them even embarrassing things. A real friend is someone that you may want to unload a secret, unload something you're embarrassed about, something that you may be ashamed of. That's a true friend. So here, in this story, the Torah mentions Reya, this friend over here, and Yehuda kind of admits to him kind of some really almost embarrassing things about himself, but that's a true friend. The Rambam talks about 3 levels of friendship. The first friendship, he says, basically it's based on you gain from him, he gains from you. So it's a mutual gain. So when there's no longer a benefit, friendship's over. Then he talks about the emotional friendship, where you feel for somebody and they feel for you. That's more than just, because I'll gain something from you, because I really just care about you. That's the next level of friendship. And the third level of friendship is when you both share similar values, and so therefore you kind of grow together and off each other. That's the highest level of friendship. But in that, included that friendship, is certainly the ability to share. Hey, I've done something wrong. Could you help me with that? And that's a true friend. And people have if you have 1 or 2 of those in your whole life, it's terrific. If you have somebody like that you can share with, even things that you feel may be embarrassing, and kind of, let your guard down to them. That's a true friend. So that's subject over there.
And the reverse of sharing something with somebody else is when you criticize a friend who needs to be told he's doing something wrong.
That's also true. Right.
And that friend accepts that, then
right.
That's a real friend, because
right.
it's not just there to
to depopulate. Right, 100%. 100%. So anyway, yeah.
Yehuda, isn't it the fact that the reason he admitted, because he realized that Tamar was not going to humiliate him in front of the Kahal.
That's correct.
And that's why he admitted.
Well,
no, meaning that she was willing to die, not to embarrass him.
Right. Not to embarrass him.
Right, which is incredible.
And that's why we are not supposed to embarrass anybody.
Right, 100%. 100%. It's considered like second-degree murder, almost 100%. 100%.
So he realized that.
Right.
How nice she was. Then.
And at one point he recognized that what was going on. Right. So I want to mention Vayetzei Shalosh Chadashim. It was after 3 months they recognized she's pregnant. That's when the whole episode starts. Just to connect it to Hanukkah a little bit. There's a machlokas in the Gemara when the world was created, Tishrei or Nisan. All right. So Tosfos resolves by saying, well, Tishrei was the hirayon, was the conception, and Nisan was the later, the birth. Now, it doesn't, by the way, have to mean there was a lag. in the Kadosh Baruch Hu's world, there's no time. So Tishrei and Nisan could have occurred simultaneously. But for us, there's a concept. There's we'll call it machshava. Conception and machshava are a similar idea. And later and actual creation, it represents a second idea. Okay, so that means that the world was conceived on Aleph Tishrei. Agreed? But it really wasn't, because we know that Adam was conceived or created on Aleph Tishrei. You have to back it up 6 days for when the world was created. So 6 days before Aleph Tishrei is when Chaf Hey Elul, the 25th day of Elul, is when the world was conceived.
That's
and on
my son Nevin's birthday. Too.
Yeah, okay. And on that day of Chaf Hey Elul, what did Hashem say? Yehi Or, let there be light. Right? Agreed? So 6 days earlier, conception, Yehi Or. What did I just say? 3 months into a pregnancy is when you can see Hukar Uber. You can see the pregnancy. So 3 months of Chaf Hey Elul is when? Chaf Hey Kislev. Hanukkah. So that light that was conceived, so to speak, that famous hidden light that was conceived, Chaf Hey Elul, comes to light, literally, right? On the Chaf Hey Kislev, 3 months later. So based on this parsha, that 3 months is when you see conception. It's a kind of a mystical thought. What? Or Haganuz, correct. So that hidden light that was conceived, Chaf Hey Elul, the Hi-Ar, really comes to light 3 months later, not coincidentally on Chaf Hey Kislev. It's a nice remez from the Bnei Yisachar. Let me just maybe cover one more thing on the parsha. Okay, so Yosef is in Miss Potiphar's house. We know she tries to do some numerous ways, numerous times. Vayimoin, right? And he refuses. And he says, "Listen, how can I do this? You know, your husband trusted me everything in the house. How can I be unfaithful and not have gratitude?" So 2 things. We all know that the word Vayimoin has a shalshelas, that chain, Vayimoin, right? Because he kind of, had to hesitate and push. And you also find the same word Vayimoin when Yaakov refused to believe that he had died. Vayimoin leisnachim. When the brother said he's dead, they showed him the code, he refused to believe. The word Vayimoin, the exact same word Vayimoin. There is a shalshelas, a chain. That's what that trup, that music note that I just did, which is a very unusual one. It's called shalshelos, which means a chain. That means it's a link. That means there's a link from this Vayimoin to that Vayimoin. It's because Yaakov refused to give up on Yosef that Yosef had the strength and the power to resist the temptation. In other words, even if he didn't sense it, the fact that Yaakov didn't give up, and he davened for him, when we don't give up on our children, it gives them strength in ways that we don't even know. And so Yaakov doesn't give up, and therefore Vayimoin, he's connected, linked, literally, with this Vayimoin of Yosef. The Torah seems to link the two, that Yosef has the strength. In fact, Chazal tell us, right, he saw he saw Demus Yaakov, he saw the image of Yaakov, and that's part of what's going on over here. In a sense, as much as the child always has to, have the presence of his parents, it's the parent's responsibility that the child should want to see the presence of the parent. So it's Yaakov's Vayimoin that creates the opportunity for Yosef to always carry with him the image of Yaakov. And certainly the image of Yaakov is specifically the midah of emes, the midah of truth, and that's what protected Yosef over here. Because she was arguing with him, listen, we're destined to be together. She said, based on astrology, we're going to have a child together. And she wasn't half wrong. The child that she raised ends up marrying, right? That was, everyone knows the story? Dinah was raped, that child ends up going down to Mitzrayim, and Yosef ends up marrying that child.
Only Jew in Mitzrayim.
Yes, and he marries her. So she was half wrong. She said, in astrology, we're destined to get married. It wasn't her, it was actually her child. But she was convincing him that so he needed the midah of Yaakov, of emes, of absolute truth to say, you know what? I'm not doing this because it's true. I'm doing it because I have a temptation. Rabbi Gedai once said, how do you know? Sometimes the Yetzer convinces us that what we're doing is really a mitzvah. It's really wrong, but how do you know? He says, if you're running really fast to do it, it's probably Yetzer, right? We don't run fast to mitzvahs, right? The Yetzer will slow us down. If we're running fast, there's probably a good likelihood that's really the Yetzer was springing out of ears. And Yosef kind of sensed that he was maybe a little over-eager to be with her. And he said, 1 second, that's coming from the Yetzer, and that's when he kind of stepped back. But I want to point out, he says, Vayimoin, he refused, he said no, and then he says, how can I do so? So you see from here a certain battle strategy when we're fighting temptation. And that is the following. Once you enter into dialogue with whoever's trying to tempt you, you never know in the debate whether you're going to win or lose. It's important before you, when you engage in the debate, you can get sucked in. You don't even realize it. Yosef first says is no. By your mind, the answer is no. It's not happening, and it's not just for him, for her to hear, for him to hear. There's no. It's a non-negotiable. No. Now you want to explain? I'll explain you why. But first, let's draw the line in the sand. Sometimes we have to know. You know, we know how we can get drawn into something and how we can rationalize something. We rationalize everything, right? And so this is wrong. You say no. It's no. I'm not going to start thinking. Well, maybe over here. Once you start thinking, your mind can think anything that it wants to lead itself to the conclusion, right? And so something's important to say, you know what? The answer is no. By your mind, I'm not going ahead with this. It's wrong. End of conversation. I'm not even thinking about it because once I think about it, I can rationalize. We rationalize everything. This is totally not related to this, but okay. So I was trying to lose weight. I'm still trying to keep my weight off. Okay, so I get on the scale, right? Let's say it shows like it's 4 more pounds than I want to say. So what do? So I don't necessarily say I'm going to lose more weight. I move the scale to another part of the bathroom where maybe I'll get a more favorable reading because maybe the bathroom won't be so even. And if it still doesn't work, I'll move it one more time, and then it reads what I want. Oh, great! And I walk up feeling good. It's the most nourishing thing in the world. But I really feel I have to be a couple weeks. I really feel better. Now it doesn't make any sense, right? Because I just manipulated, right? But I went for a third. I went for a third opinion until I got to, right. But that's rationalization. So Yo says I don't get into debate because once we get into debate with temptation, I can rationalize it. So the answer is no for myself. The answer is no. Then I could talk and explain to you why it would be totally ungrateful of me to do so. But it's a very important strategy